Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of TCG Talk. And today we are going to be going over more of a kind of tips video. I've been doing a lot of deck lists, a lot of different meta stuff, and I wanted to kind of slow down and, really give my thoughts on maybe kind of beginner to intermediate players and trying to help them out, and at least with things that I've learned and things that have helped me. So hopefully more people can feel more comfortable with the game and feel like they're getting better and improving and enjoy it more, right? Because I know with me, when I play a game, any game, not just a card game, not just TCGs, when I get better at it, I enjoy it more. Some people, are just doing it for complete fun and it doesn't bother them. But in a game like Flesh and Blood, if you're constantly losing, it can really be daunting. So this video is really to kind of give 5 easy tips on to players who maybe understand the game. They've been playing for a couple weeks, maybe a month or two. They've gotten to the point where they can get through a game, without messing up a lot or stuff like that. But now they're like, okay, what do I got to do to where I can get better? I can start winning some matches at my local armory event. I can maybe even win my local armory event, and really maybe start to take the next step as a player. So for me, number one for me, get right into it, is learn the heroes. When I first started out, I was using the fine gentleman that you see on my screen right now, Katsu. I enjoyed playing Katsu. I loved Katsu, and I learned everything I could about him. Every card, control Katsu, mid rangey, aggro Katsu, the good and bad of both, all that stuff. And I went super in depth, but I didn't learn all the heroes, mostly because it's so much information. It's hard to learn everything, but you can know your deck up one side and down the other. But if you don't know what the other hero is trying to do across the table, you don't know how you should play your hero, right? Like how Katsu plays into a Bravo is a lot different than how Katsu plays into a Dash. And it's a lot different than how Katsu plays into a Dorinthia, right? And Dorinthia, I'm just straight racing her. Whereas in a Bravo or a Dash, I kind of got to be a little bit smarter. Maybe put some flick flacks, some unmovables in there, things about that. We'll talk about sideboarding here in a minute. But you need to understand what each hero can do. I'm not saying, buy all the heroes cards and like play every hero and learn every hero. Like just, go on YouTube, go to your local armory, talk to players who play different heroes and just say, hey, can you sit down with me and tell me what this hero's like main game plan is? What are you trying to do with this hero? Right? What are their key cards? What cards should I be looking for? As kind of like keys of like, hey, they're about to do a pivot turn. What's your weakness with this hero? What are you trying to prevent? Understanding the heroes will help you understand how you are going to, play your hero effectively and really be better from matchup to matchup. And it'll just kind of compound everything else in this list. So, go online. There's tons of resources of people playing different heroes, giving you deck tech guides, giving you all types of things on what those heroes do. Learn the heroes as best you can so you understand how your hero plays into that matchup. For my second tip is understanding red, yellow, and blue is the best way to put it. Understand what the different color cards are usually used for, right? They're all have little mini kind of uses depending on the deck, but generally your reds are your attack or your, offensive cards. Your blues are your defensive cards or your resource cards, and then your yellows are typically your utility cards, things that enable your deck to do different things or help compound certain effects. Um, a good example is, and it's not like the end all be all card, it's just an example, is like Flicker Wisp in Briar's deck. It's a majestic that allows anything that's dealing arcane damage to deal that much +1 if you fuse it. So it's more of a utility card, right? It enables her deck to do even more of what it's trying to do. Yellow cards will kind of enable your win condition. So as you're building your deck, when you put your blues in your deck, be like, okay, does this blue block well? Does it block for 3? Typically, you want your blues to block for 3 if they can. Is it a good resource card, right? Would I rather be playing this card at red? What do I want to play at red and blue? When you look at your red cards, like, is it hitting that 4 break point? Am I attacking for 4 most of the time? So I make them have to block with 2 cards or a defense reaction or equipment. Is it enabling other parts of my deck? Does it have go again? Does it have certain on hit effects? Like, what is the purpose? And then when you look at yellows, like, how is this card enabling the rest of my deck to be even better? Understanding what each color does in each matchup and in each hero is very important, and it will help you build decks better, build them more efficiently. So definitely understand what each color does and the purpose of it within each respective hero. Kind of like piggybacking off of that with a third tip, you want to look at the ratios, right? understand ratios of decks, right? If I'm playing Katsu, aggro Katsu, typically I'm going to run maybe 12 blues, maybe 13, 12, maybe 13 blues. Some people run 15. I prefer running 12, 13. And how you think about that with ratios, right? If you run 15 blues in a 60 card deck, not always, but if you think about math, right, that's 1/4 of your deck is blues. That means typically 1 out of 4 cards in your hand every turn will be a blue. Now, is that's good for your Kadachis? That's good to enable resource for other cards that might not be 0 cost, what have you, right? Um, but some decks, like my Briar build, my Lightning Briar build, has 9 blues in it. That's it. Because I'm running a bunch of 0 cost red attack cards and I don't need a whole lot of blues. But if you're playing Bravo, right, Bravo needs a lot of blues for dominate effect, to pitch for his attack, stuff like that. You're running 30 plus blues. So you at least have, you want to run at least 30 blues, more than that, so you can have at least 2 blues a hand. You ideally want 2 or 3. So he runs a lot of blues. It just depends on what your ratio is. There's really good players out there, professional players that make ratio guides. There's a link, if I can find it, I'll put it in the description below. If not, there's guides out there to show you how ratios work. But like, just use simple math at the beginning. If you have 15 blues in your deck, odds are you're gonna have 1 blue per hand. Do you want 1 blue per hand? Do you want 2 blues per hand? Right? How do you want that to work out? And then you gotta think of ratios for attack and non-attack actions, right? Like a Viscerai player will play. Well, if it's aggro or mid range, we'll want to play 30 attack and 30 non-attack actions. So that way you have a mix of both. So when you Sonata Arcanics, and you want to get that even split, it's easier, right? If I'm running 45 attack cards and 15 non-attack cards, then that means every time I draw up, odds are I'm going to have 3 attacks with 1 non-attack. Is that what you want in your deck? Understanding ratios and understanding just simple math, right? Know what your hero's win condition is and what your ratios need to be accordingly. Ratios go way deeper than that. You could do a whole 2-3 video series on ratios, but that's the simplicity of it. Understand, like, if I have X amount of this type of card, how often am I going to see that card? Do I want to see that card that often, or do I want to see it less or more? And then go from there. For the fourth one, it's pitch cycle. This one's a little bit more in depth, especially if you're an aggro player. You need to understand pitch cycling, right? Like if I'm playing Katsu, I'm gonna keep using Katsu as the example because it's easy for me. If I pitch a blue every single turn for 6 turns in a row, 7 turns in a row, if the game lasts that long, then odds are, if you get to the end of the game, maybe your opponent's trying to fatigue you, all of a sudden you're going to be drawing all blues, right? That's not ideal because you don't want that as Katsu because you're not going to be able to hit very hard. So you need to understand, like, pitch cycling, which cards should I be pitching, how should I be pitching cards. It's even more important when you're playing against a control / fatigue deck, and you're the second cycle of your deck, you're going to see. This isn't like Magic where you just have resources on the board and then they stay there the whole game. Every card's a resource. So you need to understand, like, if I pitch 7 blues in a row, then if I get to the bottom of my deck at the end of the game, it's gonna be really bad because I'm not gonna have any cards that do anything. Now, if you're playing Bravo, that might not be a bad gig, but it just depends on who you are. So understand pitch cycles. There's people that explain it way better than me, but know that every card you pitch you could possibly see later that game. So if you can keep track of that, understand, like, how many blues am I about to see? What cards are about to come up in my deck? If I just played a blue Plunder Run into a blue Soul Beat Strike into a blue Lord of Wind, then that means at the bottom of my deck, I'm going to draw a Lord of Wind, a Soul Beat Strike, and a Plunder Run, which ideally isn't great, right? So understand that, and it's really important when you're playing fatigue and control matchups. Understand pitch cycling and understand resource management. Every card's a resource. So I'm not saying hold back on attacks because of that, but just pitch smartly, right? With Briar, like, if I want to hit with a Red Ravenous Rabble as my last attack, sometimes I will pitch that Red Ravenous Rabble and Rosetta Thorn for 2 and 2, and that way that Red Ravenous Rabble will be at the bottom of my deck if I need it. And now I have a good attack coming in, later in the game. It just depends on what you're doing. It's a really in-depth, hard thing to master. And also, when you get really good at it, you start paying attention to what the other hero's doing and how their pitch is looking, and kind of tracking their pitch cycle. So you understand, like, okay, he just pitched this card, this card, and this card. That card's going to come up probably in like 7-8 turns, 6-7 turns. I got to watch out for that. That's what the high level players do. I am not at that level yet, but it's definitely something to keep in mind. For the fifth and final tip, it's sideboarding. Excuse me. Sideboarding is really important because you want to understand what goes good and bad in your matchups. Like with Katsu, when I play a Dorinthia or a Dash, I put Flick Flax in because I want to be able to block multiple attacks in a turn if I have to. Against a Bravo or Oldheim or someone with high dominate, I will put in unmovables because I need to block out a lot so they don't hit me with that crush effect. Even equipment. If I'm playing a Viscerai, I want to sub in one no rune equipment so I can block his rune chance. All this type of stuff. Make sure you have Arcane Barrier. You need to understand like what is my weakness in each matchup and how do I need to sideboard cards in. The second half of sideboarding is make sure you're taking out the correct cards, right? Like if I sub in 3 unmovables in Katsu, but I take out 3 attacks, that's not necessarily good because now I just made my attacks less effective and I still have a bunch of non-attack action cards in my deck. You want to make sure you're sideboarding in the correct cards and then sideboarding out the correct cards. If you sideboard in 3 defensive cards, typically you want to sideboard out 3 non-attack actions, or maybe 1 attack, 2 non-attack actions, whatever it is, right? You need to make sure you're sideboarding out the correct cards. That just takes time. Playing a lot against a lot of different heroes, and then understanding, all right, what cards can I sideboard in that would help me beat this hero? All right, now what cards can I take out that won't hurt my game plan? Basically, when you take cards out to put cards in, you need to make sure, like, if I take this card out, is it going to hurt my win condition? Try to take cards out that don't hurt your win condition or hurt it the least amount when you sideboard new cards in. But sideboarding is very important. It's probably one of the most important things in Classic Constructed. Obviously not relevant in Blitz, but it's really important in Classic Constructed. But yeah, so that's my 5 tips. Learn the heroes, understand red, yellow, and blue pitch, learn what ratios are, pitch cycling, understand pitch cycling, and understand sideboarding. I definitely could bring in some really smart minds and we could do like a little podcast thing on each of these if you all wanted. Let me know in the comments below if you'd like to see any of these more in depth. I'll definitely make some in-depth videos with some other people about it. I would love to be able to help people out and teach people what I've been taught by people even better than me about the game. But yeah, thank you all so much for tuning in this. Let me know if you like this. Let me know if it helped you out at all. What your thoughts are, and maybe you have more tips for players. Please leave it down in the comments below. I love other people helping people out. But yeah, thank you all so much for tuning in to TCG Talk, and I'll talk to you all next time. Thank you so much.